Welcome. So this panel is some of the OGs of the Render Network, some of the first artists to use the Render Network for large commercial productions. And given that this is the first Render Network conference and we're celebrating kind of the history of the network, we thought it was important to just recognize some of the real early adopters. So I'm going to quickly cycle through artworks by the artists on this panel to just give you some context for the conversation. And I'll go from furthest to nearest. So first artist on the panel, and you guys will do much longer intros after this, is Nick DenBoer, or Smearballs. And let's get this video going just to give you a sense. This is Pomegranate, which was done as a music video for deadmau5. And really, I think one of the first massive projects done on the Render Network. Let me get the sound up.
It is shining like 3 seeds of pomegranates in my hands. It's just us that's on this beach and all this sand, all of this water. I know, but damn, I know we ain't supposed to touch it. We only live once, man. You said, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Then said, take it, take it, take it. I said, didn't we do this really? Shouldn't we have waited? You're making faces, probably so am I. We're in the ocean, waves are rolling in your eyes. Pulses high, the heartbeats, we're being called to the other side, girl.
All right, and then we'll move on to some other more personal projects. So you'll see this on a display outside in the main area entrance. Just some remarkable creative vision. They're just things that, I don't know how you come up with this creatively. Really excited to explore on this panel. Let's go. We got 2 more. Sorry, whoops. And then do a quick loop of this. And this is my favorite, honestly. Like, I was just cracking up when I saw this come out on the other side. Awesome. And then we have Davy Force with us, and he created the opening sequence and visual effects work for Glitch in the Matrix, a film by the acclaimed director Rodney Asher. And again, this was a super OG project. I think it was early 2020, 2019, right during the pandemic. A film that went, I think, theatrical briefly and has gotten a wide release on streaming platforms. Again, one of the first production commercial jobs done on Render. Amazing. And then closest to me, we got Brilly, who started out on the Render Network with this amazing collaboration with the acclaimed musician Scott Storch, who's one of the most legendary producers and musicians of our time, who's done the background tracks for many of the most iconic songs of the last 25 years, like Dr. Dre, I believe Snoop. We'll get into it a little bit more. And then let's do one more of the collab with Scott. Amazing. And then David was also one of the early sort of leaders in the NFT movement. This is one of his more iconic works that released in 2021. And has since become an OG in a new way, which is using the Render Network for massive projects on the Las Vegas sphere. So this is a work he did for Coca-Cola on the Exosphere. And here you can see kind of the frames done on the Render Network and the outputs that were wrapped around the sphere. So let's get into the panel. I think let's just kick it off with introductions of yourselves. Describe a little bit your creative process, your inspiration, and maybe even your journey into 3D and eventually the Render Network.
Cool. Yeah, hey, I'm Nick DenBoer, and yeah, I have a website called Smearballs, which is a little weird, but seems to work out. I'm a director, do a lot of commercials, music videos, and some film work, a little bit of everything. I'm also a node operator on the Render Network, so I help the cause, it's been pretty awesome. And yeah, I use Octane pretty much every day, so it's a big part of my workflow, and I guess my creative process is just, I don't know, just weird stuff kind of comes out of me. I'd have no control over it, really. But with the commercial work, I've always kind of just, like, for years I actually ran a construction company, and 3D stuff was my side project, just art that I always made for fun. So I started out, and Davy as well, in kind of the remix zone, like taking old like infomercials and making fun remixes in After Effects, and that kind of led into doing more 3D work, and then people started hiring me. I think the first gig I got that was like real advertising gig was Ken Block, who was crazy race car drifter, rest in peace. Actually, unfortunately, he passed a few years ago in an accident, but he was an amazing guy who just saw my early remixes and was like, yo, can we hire you to do like a low-key underground remix of the Gymkhana videos where he's driving the cars through warehouses and stuff. So Davey and I teamed up, and we made a remix having pterodactyls attack his car and all kinds of stuff like that. So that kind of started this advertising career, and where I got more and more into 3D, and eventually doing music videos for the likes of deadmau5 and stuff like that. And yeah, still kind of rolling on that. But I still always do my weird projects for fun under the Smearballs moniker, because that's where I get experimental, and I find that's where people will only hire you for what they know you've done. And if I break new ground doing my weird experimental stuff, it always leads to cool new projects that I get to do what I'm doing on the side professionally. So it's kind of worked out for me.
Awesome. And Davy?
Hey, Davy Force, animator, commercial director. It's been I've been doing it a long time. I was thinking about my first 3D program was in 1988, and it's been non-stop since. Do a lot of mixed live action and whatnot, a lot of silly stuff, the remixing. I've done a bunch of collabs with Nick, and yeah, fell in love with Octane, kind of gave me a whole new rebirth of excitement about 3D. It's literally like the most exciting thing to 3D right now for me. I'm excited to do something if it's in Octane. Well, everything's in Octane for me, but anyway, yeah, I run a underground television channel called Info Channel, the world's most positive and colorful television network with over 2 million colors now, and that's it. I do a lot of creative stuff on the side, and then, like Nick, I'm lucky enough now that I've been putting out a bunch of stuff that now I'm getting hired to do the weird stuff, where it used to be when I would direct commercials, it would be like, Downy, whatever, fabric softener, and now it's weird, freaky stuff, and I'll take it. So that's it.
I love it. Like this is a panel of everyone that like likes to make weird stuff, essentially, because I'm gonna like repeat the similar stuff. So I'm a professor. I also do a lot of educational training for the Render Network and O2A and stuff like that. But I've been doing commercial work now for over a decade, for music videos to just brands and musicians, concert visuals, you name it, and yeah, kind of my entryway into all this was doing more of that just direct commercial work, direct to client. But my career really started to kind of flourish when I started doing more personal projects and making that weird stuff. And it never needed to be like a direct one-to-one relationship. It was like clients would be like, you know, that weird blobby, gross thing that you just did this morning. I was like, yeah. They're like, that was awesome. Like, could you design a logo for us? It was like no connection whatsoever, but that kind of stuff resonated with them more. That stuff that's like artists doing full creative freedom that you don't really get from client work all the time. Not always, but most of the time you don't. And kind of from that point on, personal work has been like my driving force and goal. And then obviously the same thing. The minute I started using Octane, there was just so much more possibilities of what you could create within a certain time frame, which then leads me to the Render Network, because that double times that, right? With the Render Network, that does the same thing. How much more content can I create with limited time to fit in that kind of personal work that brings me all the commercial work and really makes me enjoy motion design in general.
Amazing, amazing. Well, just such an awesome panel. So, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that all of you have had a front row seat to the whole history of, GPU rendering and a majority of the history of the rise of 3D. Just curious, from your perspective, what's changed over the, past like decade, 2 decades? What stayed the same, and what are you excited about for where the industry is going?
Well, I always think it's funny that, like, even though the technology gets crazier and faster and we can now render with the Render Network, it's like things kind of also don't get faster, because then you just try and push more stuff through the pipeline and it still takes forever because you push it to limits. Like, now I'm doing 8K renders just because I can, and then I'm still waiting a day for things to happen, But I think there's some things that kind of stay the same given the advancements. But I think the biggest thing for me was the semi-almost real-time rendering at, high quality. And even now, it's like with the Render Network, I was tempted for a while to jump into Unreal because of the real-time thing. But now that I'm able to render 50 frames at a time, I kind of don't care to take that extra step. Because for me, I think a lot of people are in the same boat where it's kind of cool to do the Unreal real-time thing, but the qualities, that extra like 5-10% that Octane gets you is like worth so much to me that it's kind of like doing all that work to port things into Unreal just to get that faster render isn't kind of worth it. And now using the network, I can just bust out a bazillion frames so fast. Like I just did a last minute 2-day job before Coachella to do some emergency fixing on someone else's project. We had to do a bunch of 8K renders and we got them out in time, like after doing 2 all-nighters and then pressing render and it being done in an hour. It was crazy. So yeah, that's a huge advancement for me anyway.
I love the use of AI, and like I know for artists, a lot of times that's not the most popular thing to hear. But when you think about more interesting ways to use it that don't take away from the creativity that you're putting in the project, that's when it gets really exciting for me. So you're mentioning like 8K renders. It's like I try not to render anything. Like, fine, if I need an 8K render, I'm going to see how low I can render it, and then use AI to up-res it for me. Again, to try to save me time. It's like, well, it's not doing the creativity for me. It's doing the things that I don't want to waste my time waiting for. I'll even do some things with AI where it's like I'll take 2 frames. I'll take the beginning frame and the end frame from a sequence, render 1 still frame, and see what AI can do to blend a motion in between those frames to save me that and have kind of automatic art direction ability through it too. So I see honestly more integration into workflows for artists using AI that don't take away our creative passion from it, but kind of fuel it a little bit more.
Amazing, amazing. So I think, Nick, what you alluded to with the more efficient and powerful rendering gets, the more you want to bite off and do crazier, more ambitious projects. Is in AI or just in computing in general, they call it Givon's paradox, where like the more efficient computing gets, the more work that people end up doing, and it's kind of like a Zeno's paradox where you don't actually like get to this like end state. So let's imagine a world where the render network now allows you to do 50 concurrent nodes, or 100 GPUs at a time. What if it was like even more than that, and you just didn't have even the limitations that you have today, and you could render out at a scale of 10x what you can do today? What would you guys want to be exploring creatively in that type of a future?
The holodeck.
Yeah.
I mean, Jules was just talking about it. It's like and for me, it's like the most immersive experience possible of like creating worlds that you can, like all the stuff you saw up there. Like, I want to be in those places. You know what I mean? Let people journey through that like it's actual real life thing.
Like already I take projects now, even that deadmau5 music video we watched a bit of, it was like at that time, the reason I used the render network at first was because I was rendering locally, and Joel deadmau5 gave me his like crazy GPU servers. So I had 2 of those servers, and one of them was just screwing up left, right, and center. I didn't know it was wrong, and I tried to like update the BIOS for some reason. I was trying everything. It was like down to the timeline, and I thought I bricked the thing, so I was freaking out. And we realized we could use the render network, so that we blasted off all the rest of the scenes in that. But even at that time with a crazy time crunch, I was throwing like just extra camera runs because I'm like, this is just rendering without me having to do any compute power. So just having these frivolous extra shots to play with in the edits, and just to like, if you're making a film and are able to just have that luxury in the edit bay of having just all this plentiful amounts of footage, you just can really make the project you want and get all these happy accidents and surprises out of stuff that you wouldn't know what it would have looked like if you didn't have that power. So that's a huge thing for me.
Awesome. So I think, Brilly, you touched on AI a little bit. I'd be interested, Davey, Nick, from your perspective, like you both have extremely distinct and unique styles, and one of the things that I think people are seeing with AI is it's like really good at mimicking and repeating styles, but it may not be good at inventing styles similar to what you've done, kind of through just this huge oeuvre of work that's very experimental, very kind of non-traditional. Where do you see, like, for one, I'm curious, are you at all like interested in integrating AI in your workflow, or?
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't be not excited about the AI tool sets that are coming out now. It's just one of the most exciting things in computer graphics. The last exciting thing to me was GPU rendering and this physical rendering models and all that. And now with AI, it's kind of like, wow, and it is the challenge of figuring out how to use it as a tool and to not lean on it too hard, and to, I don't know, it's just, I never saw it coming. I've been in computer graphics, since the 80s now, like I say, which is pretty sad for me to say that, but I never saw it coming, the generative AI and all these tools, and just how many times I've cut something out, it just sucks cutting things out and cutting mats, and and now you're able to generate depth maps and do all this kind of stuff that just seemed impossible. I never saw it coming.
I think
So
that's the big thing, though, where I think a lot of artists get their back up about AI in general, is just because it's like you see a lot of people, like the ideal situation is using it as tools, using it for shortcuts, using it to cut out the monotonous work of it all. But like when you're leaning on AI to come up with the creative part, and then you're still doing the monotonous work, there's a lot of that going on. Like I get decks from ad agencies where it's like, the mood boarders went apeshit on Midjourney and made this thing that's going to be a massive pain in the ass to do the hard way, and then they're asking us to do this stuff that's like so difficult and so dumb. It's like completely backwards. Like, here's a difficult idea we made with Midjourney. Now do it for months and make it a reality. It's just totally backwards. So
I was going to say, nobody wants AI. Like, well, it's kind of slowly happening, but in the commercial world, they're like, whatever you do, no AI. But then you do like you say, the mood board, and it takes 30 seconds, and they're like, that's perfect, And then I remember I did a gig where just creating an environment and created an AI in 5-10 minutes, and then it took me 6 weeks to build that in 3D, and detail it all out and whatnot. It took 6 weeks, and I got paid for 6 weeks of work. So that's, better than 10 minutes of work, but.
Yeah, awesome. Nick, both you and David kind of dabbled in NFTs and Web3, and I'm a big NFT collector. It's been a tough couple of years, but the sort of promise of it was, artists could actually, sell digital internet native goods to their fans directly without intermediaries. You could sell digital art for the first time, and do it in a sort of frictionless way without like certificates and all this like complicated infrastructure. What are your thoughts on that? Moment in time, 2021, 2022, and are you at all kind of thinking about re-engaging in the future? Should sort of the infrastructure or just the sort of overall landscape change a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, well, you know what they say, when something feels like it's too good to be true, it probably is. And I think a lot of that was going around at the peak hype and the insanity of it all. Like, I really couldn't believe that things are selling like that, and it was completely nuts. But I mean, now we've got sites where, your token's pointing to a 404 error. Like, it's, things weren't really well thought out a lot of the time. And when I sold my NFTs, I actually mailed people prints along with the full res uncompressed QuickTime, so that they had the copy. So if anything went to shit, they could re-upload it and link it to their token. And it's actually still something that no one else had online. So I kind of at least gave something with it that might be future proof in general. And I would like to continue doing it, but obviously the market died, and it seems like a uphill battle. But I kind of like that that's a moment in time frozen, and I didn't flush out my fans and collectors with a bunch of crap, and it sits there, and I hope that someday it'll be worth something. I don't know, I thought it was a cool thing, and if it comes back to be more of a useful thing that people are engaging with, I'll jump back in.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what else can I add to that? I mean, that kind of sums it up. It was a really cool moment in time for sure, and it was something that, as like a digital artist, I'd been waiting for people to like appreciate the kind of talent that a lot of these artists have in the digital art world. We never were able to get that kind of notoriety for our work. It was always just seen as kind of like throwaway and commercialized work and stuff like that. And then like finally it was like put on a platform as like visualized as fine art. And I think that moment, regardless of the NFT market being down, the idea of like digital art being kind of elevated to a different level in this art world, that's here to stay. And so I could definitely see at one point those NFTs coming back to a certain degree of like having some sort of value during those couple years, and the artists that did participate and were successful during that time.
I also think that obviously with AI coming right at the heels of NFTs, it's just like, what is a still digital image worth? What is the value of that in general? Now that you can literally generate infinite amounts of them and fill Home Depot-sized server rooms with JPEGs, like, so I kind of thought that the evolution, what even Jules was talking about early on, is like having an almost Orbex version of an NFT that's a super dense thing that you can build on and change over the years, and that someone can have some ownership in, or it's almost like a video game level, or something that's more complex that can't as easily be generated by AI. That's more of a collector's item that can go into the future somehow. I don't know. Like, I just feel like just the JPEG was such a limiting use of the technology in a lot of ways that.
Yeah, definitely. We got stuck with just the output, the MOV file or the JPEG file, and one of the potentially exciting parts about the render network is you have the whole entire scene graph, the entire edit history of the 3D file, and you've seen some artists kind of start to explore, metaverses like fuck render and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, maybe there's a universe where like holograms become a thing, and you want to sort of bring back some of those works as holograms. But maybe as we're kind of running low on time, would love to close with just what projects are you excited about exploring creatively next? Do you have anything in the works that you're excited by? Any new mediums or new platforms that you want to experiment with?
I've been messing around with splats quite a bit, and I saw the new version of Octane has support for it, but it's still a little bit of a hog on the render time and stuff like that. But I passed actually one scene file that I did recently where I did a photogrammetry solve with the splat right on top of it, hoping to, in Octane use it as a shadow catcher and start putting splats in the scene, because I think that would be just a lot of fun. And I love shooting photogrammetry and splats and getting my scenes done, because I spend so much time building environments that I'd rather just shortcut it if I can. So I'm really excited about Octane support in that realm. And if it gets fast and usable, it'll be pretty powerful. So that's kind of where I'm putting some energy right now.
I would say, I'm about to go into pitch mode with Nick. So that's the exciting thing. It's been about 5 years or so since we went into pitch mode. We do it, I guess, every 5 years, try to come up with ideas that nobody wants. And, they go, that's a great idea. We're going to pass on that. And so we're about to go into that. So that's exciting. Technology-wise, I'm just fascinated by the AI. And I've been doing a lot of live action. I've kind of pulled out of the 3D, and I still do the 3D, but just the possibilities with the AI tools and figuring it out, and of course always 3D, what's going on in 3D. So
for my future, I'm doing commercial work, but that's never really the thing that drives me. Outside of like that commercial work and some projects that I have coming up, I really like building things with my hands too. So I have the capability as an artist not just to be a digital artist, but also to build things physically. So that's kind of like my goal right now, is to start taking things that I actually do digitally and bringing them to life in the physical world too. So you'll be seeing kind of more of that kind of thing from me, to where not only will it be the digital animation, but there will be a kind of a big physical aspect to it as well.
Amazing. That's so awesome. Do we have time for questions from the audience? 2 minutes? Okay, yeah, I think let's open it up to questions if anyone has one. All right, Barton, dead center.
Nick, this is a question for you. With some of your environments, are you, in the work that we saw specifically, are you using Gaussian splats? Or are you modeling or sourcing or kit bashing? Because some of them are really, really detailed. And so I was just curious.
Yeah. I mean, not in any of those, but yeah, some photogrammetry for sure, but not splats yet, production wise. But yeah, I build a lot of environments too, like music videos too. I spend weeks just adding all the graffiti and dirt details on everything. So yeah, I go to town on that, but also a lot of kit bashing and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a bit of everything. But yeah, it's definitely the biggest time suck next to the character animation for sure.
Anyone else?
With you guys being like OG artists and digital artists, how do you navigate the waters of AI now, where it's more content driven and less art driven?
well, I mean, I think that's a good thing. As far as focusing on the content, that's kind of number one. As far as what the idea is, it's all the idea. So much people are getting kicked back on these AI kind of short films. They don't get, no one's into them. It's kind of, people are repulsed by them in a way. But it just hasn't been cracked yet to just not lean on it and get the great idea and get the great characters and get the great voices and do storytelling traditionally, and so obviously it's a little bit of both in what we do, the execution and technique, and then the content itself.
There's some weird things, like I always thought, like when deepfakes were first starting to become pretty popular, I thought we'd see way more of it. I thought we'd see entire TV shows done with deepfakes. I thought we'd have all, and it seems like it didn't really grab for some reason, even though it's phenomenal technology and we see it all over the place in these little apps and these little viral mini videos and stuff. But production-wise, I'm just not seeing it as a play where you think it would be a great way to have a, movie that has, 500 of the same person with different faces, or some weird, I don't know, some weird idea. It's like, yeah, I don't know why sometimes these things don't catch on. And I have a lot of clients too who have been, artists who wanted an AI music video or ads that wanted to do this AI stuff. And the backlash is a real discussion. It's like, I think our fans are going to shit all over this because it's all AI and you get a lot of that backlash. So there's a big hurdle there too, I think, that's kind of inhibitive.
Yeah, I think eventually you're not going to be able to discern the difference, and like that will subside a little bit of like backlash. It's like no one's going to know, and like eventually, does anyone care? But the pendulum always swings, and I think there's going to be a big resurgence too for that human interaction and human experience too. So we'll probably go all AI for a short period of time and immerse ourselves in that, and then I think you're going to see it kind of pull back again.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much for an awesome panel, and let's give it up for Render OGs.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Long live Octane.
We got some cool stuff coming up.